Today's show is brought to you by Audible. Audible is offering our listeners a free audiobook with a 30-day trial membership. If you've never been an Audible customer and want to see what they offer, just go to www.audibletrial.com/Excelsior Journeys and browse the unmatched selection of audio programs. Download a title for free and start listening. It's that easy. Why Audible? Audible content includes an unmatched selection of audiobooks, original audio shows, news, comedy, and more from the leading audiobook publishers, broadcasters, and entertainers. And with this free 30-day trial, you'll have your pick of it all. You can hear books of all genres narrated by Jim Dale, Stephen Fry, Will Patton, Alex Hyde White, Jeff Brick, Neil Shaw, William Demerit, and even a few by me, George Sirois. So go to www.audibletrial.com/Excelsior Journeys and start your own 30-day journey with Audible today.
Hey, this is John Lee Dumas of the award-winning podcast Entrepreneurs on Fire, and you're listening to the Excelsior Journeys with George Sirois. Prepare to ignite.
Is there a burning desire within to share your creativity with the rest of the world? Do you insist on pursuing your passion by any means necessary? Then you are on an Excelsior journey, and you are not alone. Welcome back to Excelsior Journeys. My name is George Sirois. Thank you so much for being here. This is going to be a great episode, but before we jump into it, I just want to make a quick announcement that on Wednesday, February 27th, I am going to be at Clayton Studios at about 6 p.m., and I am going to be conducting a 2-hour seminar regarding the A to Z of podcasting. I feel like it's been just a real thrill being able to create this show on a weekly basis, and I want to basically just kind of let people know what it is that they need to do in order to get their own podcast off the ground. Mind you, obviously the show has not reached the levels of success as someone say as John Lee Dumas has. But at the same time, I do love what I do, and I've had a lot of fun doing it. And according to previous guests, I'm doing a decent job of it. So thank you, all of the guests, for being a part of the show. Thank you for all of you listeners for downloading the show. And if you're in the St. Louis area, would love to meet you over at Clayton Studios on Wednesday, February 27th. Please reach out to Clayton Studios for more information. The number there is 314-781-6200. Now, when you are growing up, you have big dreams. And when you find those fellow students that are growing up with you, you have those big dreams together. You've realized that there is definitely a connection between the two of you that really pushes you forward. And when it comes to my guest this time for this week, filmmaker Chris Ethridge, our passion was film, was storytelling, and in any way possible, we always wanted to do it. This was something that we discovered about each other back in 8th grade when we met each other at Bird Middle School. And that continued on throughout the years that we knew each other in Godwin High School. And that continued on even years after we had lost touch with each other when he went to college, I went to college, I went back up to New York to study theater, and Chris went into computer science. As thankfully for the age of social media, we were able to reconnect, and it turns out that Chris was able to hold on to that passion that he had of filmmaking for so many years and cultivate it and expand upon it to the point where he is actually doing it. I am proud to say that I have his feature film, Attack of the Morningside Monster, in my library, which I think is a damn good movie. Really, definitely. I would recommend that movie. It's a lot of fun, and it's got a lot going for it. And I'm not just saying that because he's here. And I am also proud to have been a part of his Kickstarter campaign for his Stephen King Dollar Baby film, which is Survivor Type. And he just keeps on going because he is now currently taking his new thriller horror with some elements of sci-fi mixed in called Haven's End, and it is making the runs in the around the whole festival circuit and is actually getting quite a bit of interest. So here he is. I'm so happy to have him here. Finally, we've tried to get our schedules meshed the right way in order to have him here, and as life tends to do, life gets in the way, and so finally we have him here. And it's my pleasure to introduce my friend Chris Ethridge. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great, man. This is. You're right. It took us a while to get this together, but I'm glad we're finally actually doing it.
Finally made it happen. Finally,
Yep.
and I'm so thrilled about that. So before
Definitely.
we jump into the origins of your filmmaking passion, let's start with what's going on right now. Tell us a little bit about Haven's End.
Right. So Haven's End is my second feature in 4 years, I guess, or 5 years at this point, because Morningside Monster, or The Attack of the Morningside Monster, came out in October of 2014, and this one premiered in October of 2018. So it was about 4 years apart on the films. Yeah, it's a horror thriller. It's mildly post-apocalyptic, meaning it actually takes place right when an apocalyptic event is happening, and the massive terrorist attacks are just decimating various cities, and our protagonists are in Atlanta, and they basically leave Atlanta in the middle of a terrorist attack to head to some family property in the rural countryside to kind of hole up and wait out to find out what's going to actually happen to society, and then they run into other family members they weren't expecting at the property, and so these two kind of opposing groups have to figure out how to work together. And then the real fun starts when random lights start appearing and hallucinating type of events start happening in the woods while they're trying to survive. So
Wow,
it's a lot of fun.
it sounds great. It sounds like it's going to be a blast. So with a considering that this is like a post-apocalyptic thriller, and was it basically just a matter of kind of keeping everything really kind of contained in order to keep the budget low? Like was that basically
There's definitely a component of that. I mean, that's an indie film thing. So Morningside, as you've seen, is not really contained. It's got 20 some locations.
Right.
It's a full small town, and we utilized it. And it's on an indie level, it's hard to maintain that. That took a long time to shoot that movie. We shot it over 7 or 8 months, some big sections here and there, but then we finished up on weekends, basically. Like, hey, here's 2 days, we'll shoot some more. And so it took a long time, and I didn't want to do that this time around. This time around, I wanted to shoot the whole thing and just knock it out. So the way you do that is you minimize your locations. And so we have 3 main locations where the apartment in Atlanta at the beginning, there's a warehouse, and then basically this family property that they go to where there's a like a trailer and a pond and and then just a lot of woods. So we limited it this time, and that helps you shoot it faster. And we were able to we shot the whole thing. Basically, our main production run was 10 days. 2 weeks. There was a 1 day break in the middle of the 10 days, and then we had 1 day of pickups a couple months later, which was mostly B-roll. It was mostly establishing shots and things of that nature, and a couple of things I wanted to correct we didn't quite get right on our on our very compressed time schedule.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had, and then here or there I'd do a pickup shot as we were editing. I would be like, I'd really like to have this, and if it's something simple like an insert, I can go get it. It's really funny. There's probably 3 inserts in the movie that were all shot in my backyard.
Really?
Just because they're tight and contained, and you just set the background to look like what it's supposed to look like, and then you take the shot.
Wow. So wow, that's so cool. It's almost kind of like the way that what was his name, Tom McLaughlin, how he filmed the last part of Friday the 13th Part 6 in his parents' pool. So just
Right. Right,
It's
exactly.
amazing how you just kind of like you find what you use what you have available.
Yeah,
It's like what
absolutely.
Robert Rodriguez said, like years back.
Yes.
So
Yes. I mean, and Robert Rodriguez is just I mean, I don't think most filmmakers of our generation practically would not exist without him, right? Like Rebel
yeah.
Without a Crew. Rebel Without a Crew is a really interesting book because it's not filled with a lot of practical advice. Like it's not filled with a lot of like, here's how you do something. It's filled with a lot of attitude. And it's basically, if you read this book and you don't walk out of it wanting to make your own film, I don't know what happens, because that's what I did. you know.
So speaking of those kinds of inspirations, let's go back to the very beginning. Now, when I knew you, like during in Bird Middle School, we had no resources in order to kind of tell the types of stories that we wanted to tell. We had the drive to do it. We just had no idea how to make that happen. And obviously those projects that we, kind of had in mind never really materialized. But what was it that made you hold on to that? What was it that made you really think like, I can do this? That's what I want to do. Because I know you have your own day job, working with computer science still, right?
Sure. Yes, I'm a software engineer, yeah.
So what happens after that? Like, what was it that made you hold on?
So that's a great question. So, went to college and was heavily involved in music in college, right? Film wasn't really on my radar. And then I moved to Athens, Georgia. And what happened was I was moving with a friend. Actually, you know him, Chris Ethridge.
Right.
And he ended up having to stay in Richmond for the summer. And I had gotten a job, so I had to go. So all of a sudden I'm in this town where I know literally no one. And I'm there for 3 months by myself. And I'm like, okay. So I ended up watching a lot of like the independent film channel, because it was one of the channels on the thing. Just a lot of different movies, and there was a couple of great video stores that at the time, in Athens. And so I just ended up watching a lot of independent films, and I just had this moment, and a lot of filmmakers have that moment where I was like, you know what, I can do this, and I can do this better than that guy, which is a very ego-oriented moment. And then you go do it and learn that you're an idiot and you don't have any idea what you're doing. You have to figure it all out. But that was really what happened. So I was like, wait a minute, you read about like Kevin Smith. Obviously, he's a great example of someone who made a film.
Yeah.
And so I put together as I started meeting people. And Chris showed up, and I started putting together a team to make some films. And we actually made a movie. We shot on 16 millimeter that never got quite finished, which is very common with first time films. It's a learning experience, and it sometimes doesn't go the way you think it's going to go. So I look at that as my film school, was that first film. But then started doing a lot of the short film competitions, like the 48-hour film project. Are you familiar with that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So did a lot of that for several years. And that was kind of it. Like I just did little shorts here and there, and didn't take it super serious, and didn't understand the festival sort of environments. And then I made one that did really well. It's called Painted Love, and it was a comedy. It was a straight up comedy. It's basically a live action Toy Story version of Romeo and Juliet, and it's basically these art supplies versus like hand tools, blue collar, white collar sort of thing, and we were just literally like holding like screwdrivers below the frame and having them fall, right? And it's absolutely hysterical, and I took it, and it was, since the 48-hour film festival is actually a competition, right? You go screen them all at the end, and we won the audience award. And it was the first time I had an audience like lose their minds over a film, Wow. And I was like, this is the drug right here. This is what I want more of. And so I started taking it more seriously, and that's when I met my current producing partner. Actually, at that screening, I met my current producing partner, Stacey Palmer, and we both shared a love of Stephen King. So that's when we went and got we did the Dollar Baby program and got the rights to make Survivor Type. And I said, I'm going to take this serious. I'm going to do it better. I'm going to learn instead of just kind of like every year doing a little small thing on the weekend or whatever. I'm going to take it serious. And that's what we did. We did that. And then that led to Morningside. And then here we are, you know?
Now,
so it's, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
So speaking of the Stephen King Dollar Baby, I've mentioned that before in previous episodes, but considering the fact that you've actually done one, I'm sure that there's quite a bit that I missed out on. So tell our audience exactly what is a Stephen King Dollar Baby. What is it that makes King so awesome that he does something like this?
Right. And the Dollar Babies have been around since at least the 80s. And Frank Darabont famously made one of the early ones. The Woman in the Room, I believe, is what he did. And but it's basically he has had this policy, particularly with his like less commercial short stories, where he will let independent filmmakers license them for $1. And the restrictions are you cannot you cannot be publicly available. Like you can't put it on, now you can't put it online. You can't distribute it. You can't make money off of it. What you can do is you can take it to film festivals. You can send it to film festivals and let them be screened there. And you can put sections of it on a reel, and you can put like a trailer or a 2-minute clip online. So that's basically it's basically a nice thing to help you get your foot in the door. So you make it with an immediate sort of interest because it's a Stephen King story, and then it works. It totally works. 'Cause I didn't understand the festival circuit at all, and had extraordinary success just submitting that movie to the festival that we did because people were like, oh, it's Stephen King, and it's one of those stories that a lot of people really, really love just because the style is written as a diary entries, type of story.
Yeah.
And it's just an interesting story in a lot of ways. And also very, at the end, very grotesque. And so we had a lot of success with that. But it's a thing where he makes it a lot easier now. Like you can actually go to his website and apply. But it used to be you had to write him a letter, and he would respond if he thought it was one that he could let go for $1.
So it's basically like you're creating a calling card for yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You're just making a film that has a little bit more immediate interest because of the subject matter.
Yeah, it's going back to what Kevin Smith was talking. How you mentioned Kevin Smith, how Clerks was kind of supposed to be a calling card film. It was supposed to get put in the door so that way he can actually be commissioned to make a real movie. It just so happened that Miramax picked it up and actually distributed it. So.
He won the lottery because he got it. He was at the New York film market, and he just, the right guy was in the room. The right producer was in the room who saw it and flipped and took it to the right people. And that's, I'm glad because obviously he's made a lot of fantastic stuff. And, but that's the kind of thing where that never happens, Yeah. So
it's winning the lottery for something that you actually did.
Right.
So
right. Exactly.
And that's such a key point there. So, Survivor Type. So Survivor Type comes, you work on Survivor Type, you get that out, which really was, I'm so proud to have been involved in that through the Kickstarter.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, that was a very early Kickstarter too. Like the platform had not been around that long.
Yeah, but I have my mug, I have my copy of the DVD. Yep. Oh yeah, nice. Still got it.
Fantastic. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So from there, so you got the so you were able to make these sort of connections that got you into, over to Survivor Type. And then from there, what was it about Morningside Monster? Because you didn't write that one, did you?
No. In fact, I haven't written any of my work in a very long time. Like that's probably going to change. That's probably going to change here with the next one. I'm going to have a hand in writing the next one. But Survivor Type and Morningside Monster, Stacy wrote both of those.
Okay.
So Stacy wrote this, and it's a very collaborative sort of process, right? Like we went through, I think 6 or 7 drafts in Survivor Type and 13 drafts for Morningside. So it's a lot of here's the idea. Now we refine and refine and refine. And so a lot of notes. It's not like she handed me a script and I just shot it. We got it to where we were both very comfortable with the things in it.
Yeah.
And Morningside in particular there was some difficult things that we had to break as far as the mystery to make sure we didn't throw things away, or give things away too early and whatnot. So
yeah, you don't want to show your hand to.
Right. Yeah. So, but yeah, no, it's and then Michael Harper, who's our other producer, who we met after Survivor Type, but before Morningside, who also produced Morningside with us, he wrote Haven's End. So I work with the same people a lot, because it's a very, particularly in any film, it's a very, there's a lot of risk, and you need to have people you can trust around you, or things can go bad very quickly. And and the reality is that I trust these two implicitly, and I think the three of us together make our work very, it's stronger when we work together. So.
Now, with that in mind, so you get the script to Morningside Monster. You're working on that with Stacy. You're getting that finalized. And one thing that I noticed, that I took notice of, really quickly, especially just knowing about the movie itself as it was going into development, seeing the kind of actors that you were able to bring into it.
Right.
So,
yes.
Tell us a little bit about how you were able to get that sort of interest.
So we actually have two name actors. Well, really even more than basically, when you're selling a movie, and this is for the most part an indie film. It's mostly about the marketing and promotion. Is name actors help people want to watch it, right? Like, hey, I recognize that person. So we actively said we're going to try and, do something bigger. And we went out and raised some money to get enough to pay for a couple of name actors. We had a producer friend who recommended Tiffany Shepis, who I love. She's been in about a gajillion films and still consistently works. And, was just in Victor Crawley recently, the fourth Hatchet movie.
Yeah.
And, it's just an all around rock star. But it happened to be a friend of this producer. So I sent her the script and then had a phone call with her, and she came out and did it. And it was great. It was fantastic.
She was very good in it too.
She's doing everything.
Seeing that sort of name and everything, like, I'm just looking around on, Facebook and just like, wow, he got Tiffany. That's so cool. Just
right.
Knowing that, the kind of connections that, that she's got with in so many films. Like, that's fantastic that you were able to work with her. And she did a great job. Kudos to her for doing it too.
Yes. And she's very high on my list of people to work with again. Haven's End was a very small cast, and it came to me precast a little bit. So there was not as much room to maneuver with that one. But I'm pretty sure she'll be in the next thing. Cause I just, it's been too long,
Yeah.
But she's amazing. And then the other name, of course, is Nicholas Brendon from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And that was we actually used a professional casting director who helped us attach Nicholas through his manager. And that was a learning experience, because I had to go through the whole actual honest to God, deal memo process with the manager, and, and the whole thing that you do when you want to attach a name actor. And the negotiations, and all that process. So it was interesting. I learned a lot. And he came out, and, he was there for just a few days, and, so you kind of arrange the schedule around when you're flying in actors like Nicholas and Tiffany, you kind of arrange the schedule around their schedule to a degree, and so that's what we do. And he came out and just, obviously did a great job in the film, And so that was interesting. And then we also have some kind of some people that I think are obviously fantastic people. Rob Pralgo, who is kind of a local actor who's in everything. He just works constantly. And then Catherine Tabor, who is the lead in Haven's End, and she had a smaller role in Morningside, but she is also the voice of Amidala on the Clothes Wars cartoon, and she's just, it consistently works in all kinds of different interesting media for Star Wars and for what's the other thing she does? Oh, she's Minecraft. If for the people out there who's got kids, Minecraft Story Mode, which is on Netflix right now, was a game before that. She's basically they let you choose between a boy character and a girl character to play, and Patton Oswalt plays the voice of the boy, and Kat plays the voice of the girl.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah,
that's great. So you have a Patton Oswalt connection, like around this as well. That's so cool.
Right. It's pretty interesting how that's actually how, to a degree, it works. You meet people, and they're like that's how I met Kat, through Rob. I knew Rob from the local sort of group, community, and then he's like, well, I got this friend, and that's how we got Kat. And then the next thing I know, we're making the next movie with Kat as the lead. So.
That's terrific. That's the dream. That's what everyone wants to do. And this is really just like an extension of, what we were always talking about doing, in
right. Right. Yes, exactly. Only we have cameras now.
Yes.
And we would write a lot, right? We wrote a bunch back then.
We did, yeah. Oh yeah.
But we just never actually made anything because it was, I think that's one of those things we didn't quite figure out. We probably could have figured out how to do some VHS camcorder type stuff. But we just didn't quite. I think my particularly as I got into the second half of high school, my interest started leaning towards music. I know, and that probably diverted me a little bit from this path.
Yeah, and with me it was focusing on acting more, and
right.
Just as a huge shout out and everything to Mac Dameron, my drama teacher over at Godwin, who unfortunately
right, of course.
passed away this past week, and he was, without him, I wouldn't have gotten to where I am now. He was the one who really kind of pushed me to get back on the stage. And all of a sudden it was just because I know the feeling. It was just you were focusing on music, I was focusing on theater, and then went to school for theater, and that's where, strangely enough, that's where my love of writing really kind of kicked back into gear. And now all of a sudden I'm writing a lot more these days, and so it's weird. It was just our passions always kind of seem to hang around for a while and then eventually just re-manifest themselves in a whole new way. And that's really what both of us are going through right now, which is great. It's almost like a renaissance for us.
Oh, absolutely. And I think what's interesting is it was like what you just said is that it's, you try new things, right? You want to you don't necessarily do the same thing as you're growing up, and as you go out into the world as a young adult, you're like, all right, this is an interesting thing. I'm going to pursue this for a while. This is interesting. But the things that really are deeply embedded in you, they always find a way to come back out. They always kind of resurface, and when opportunity shows up, where you're like, oh, we could do this. If you jump at it, you're gonna I think you're gonna be successful with the things that you really, really are a part of your core. I think as long as you take the opportunities when they come.
Absolutely, and now, so you're working with these strong, higher caliber actors. You're making a lot of connections and everything, and how was the actual filming of Morningside Monster? What was that like? There were several different kinds of effects and makeup effects and everything that you were dealing with.
Yeah,
what was that whole setup?
It was a juggling act. Don't get me wrong. It was definitely a very I don't want to say complicated, because I didn't really feel like it was complicated. It was just hard, right? It was just a lot of work, and production is just always hard. It's hard when you have millions of dollars. It's harder when you don't have millions of dollars. But it was good though. We did the first section. We did it in a 9-day period of time, and then we did, like I said, we did 2 days here and there for several more months to get it locked down. And then the opening credits were hilarious, because the opening credits are kind of like this. When we put the movie together, we figured out, we kept talking about this ritual, and we never really had a ritual in the movie. We have the aftermath, right? Sort of. but we never really had a ritual. And I was like, we probably should do something about that. So Brian Redding, who I went to college with, and then we both ended up in Georgia later on, he's been my DP on all both of my features. And I basically said, hey, I haven't taken down this altar that we've got in the movie. That, why don't you just bring your camera, come over. And he and I, by ourselves, shot the opening credits, the very last thing we shot in the movie. And
really?
Yeah. And we just shot this, we just kind of did the pans across the candles and so this last shot of the opening credits is the monster kind of like kneeling at the altar, and this body, like the body on the table, the hand like falls into frame. And literally that's me and Brian with the camera set up just to going, and he gets on the table and I get in the costume and we, so we shot it, just the two of us in our basement in like 3 or 4 hours. And that kind of sort of set the tone for the movie, a lot better. So it was the shoot overall, it was really cool, but you definitely have to pull some indie tricks, right? You definitely have to figure out how to do things as cheaply as possible that are still effective.
Now it sounds like, and there are quite a few filmmakers that really kind of thrive in that sort of atmosphere.
Sure.
That sort of constrained budget really forces them to get creative. It's like John Carpenter. You can take a look at, Escape from New York, and then look at Escape from LA, where he had a much bigger budget and much more freedom, and we have a CGI tsunami going on.
Right, and early CGI too, which is obviously its own set of problems.
Oh yeah. And just so what when you have that sort of feeling, because I don't obviously we you have yet to get that sort of budget and everything for your own films, but would you prefer to kind of keep it in that sort of constrained level and just really kind of, which knowing the kind of experience that you have, how it forces you to get creative, have you felt like you've really kind of thrive in that atmosphere and would prefer it that way, or would you like to at some point like to experiment with a bigger budget?
So the answer is twofold. I do think that I thrive in that sort of environment, and no, I don't prefer it that way.
Yeah.
meaning I think there's a happy medium for one thing, right? Like I think that there's a higher budget level that will solve some of the truly frustrating problems. Not the least of which for me personally is wanting to be able to pay my cast and crew a little bit more than what you can afford on a micro budget sort of budget. And then also just a little bit more flexibility. But the reality is, with very few exceptions, there's never a filmmaker who's been like, man, I wish I had less money. That just doesn't happen. So but I do think you have to be careful. Like I think you're absolutely correct. Like having unrestrained freedom can be a problem. Like it can actually cause you to make lesser things. Because I'll do whatever, and the sort of constraint forces you to look at it and go, what's really important here? Yeah. What are the things that really matter? Let's get those elements in there. So I think that the pressure is good. Like I do think that the constraints they make the creative challenge more focused. I absolutely think that. But I'm not saying I wouldn't want to try it without some of those constraints.
Oh yeah, just kind of loosen the chains just a little bit.
Exactly, and that's the goal.
Open.
And that's the goal on the next one. Is we're trying to move up to a slightly higher budget, which involves some different things. Micro budgets are a lot easier to fund, obviously. So it's the next thing. I probably am spending the next year at least working on the components that need to be done to actually find a significant budget.
Awesome. Very nice. Very nice. So you finish up Morningside Monster. You you're putting it together in the editing room. You're realizing that hey, this really is something. We got something here.
Yeah.
So it goes out in. So what's the next step? It goes out into festivals. You start applying for that. What's the what's the next step for aspiring filmmakers that are out there that are kind of in the same boat that you were in back then? How do you get your foot in the door regarding the festivals? Is it
so? Yeah, so
that's
a great question, and I did not know the answer when we were doing Morningside. Just FYI. And it's changed even a little since then. But here's the best advice I can give a filmmaker is you got to go to festivals. You have to go before you submit. Even if you can, you got to go and you've got to meet the people involved. You've got to meet the filmmakers. You've got to. I also think shorts. Like I would probably recommend making a short first, just for the exposure at festivals. If you want to do, first of all, you need to know what your goals are, and if your goal is to like get the movie seen, festivals are a great way to do it. Getting distribution, festivals are sometimes helpful, but I haven't found that to be quite as helpful as other people have. But if you're looking to help grow your own personal community and help grow, make relationships that help you continue to make films, festivals are fantastic. And I certainly have met some amazing people from my travels and festivals. But yeah, I would recommend you make a short first, because shorts are a lot easier to program, right? Mm-hmm. Festivals can only show X amount of features, and there's a lot of competition. And that's actually what I've run up against with Havens Inn this year. It's been surprising to me a little bit just how much competition there is and how hard it is to get programmed because of all the competition.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that with Morningside. I just blind submitted and got into a handful of festivals, and that's when I started meeting people. Now I do it completely different. You do go out and you make sure you make the relationships with the people, with the directors of the festivals and with the people involved with the festivals, and so that they know who you are, and they know that you're committed to coming, and that's what festivals really want, is they want to make sure you're going to show up. And I made a couple of mistakes with a couple of festivals with Morningside where I didn't budget for the travel. And I think they were a little frustrated and probably rightfully so, to be honest. And I wish I had done things differently, but it's all learning, right? You don't know until you know. So, but yeah, definitely if you get into something, make every effort to go. If it's an international festival, it's a little different. Like they love it when you can go, but they kind of understand it's a little different, with domestic festivals, they really do kind of want you to be there, and you should go. So Morningside, we went out on the festival circuit and then I went and found distribution, and distribution with Morningside was a little weird because we went with one company and they had a lot, they were in the process of going bankrupt and we didn't know it. So it just sat there and didn't do anything. We got it back because they never put it out, and then we went. But then things had changed a little bit, so we got a pretty good release through Gravitas and then Apprehensive Films. And it was one of their last films as well that they ended up putting out on disc. That was 2014. So really the media market has been changing for a while, but that was the big sort of moment in time where everyone's like, I don't even know if we're going to do discs for this,
Right.
We might
So when you say Gravitas, is that is it Gravitas Ventures, Cinema Gravitas
Ventures? Yeah, they are one of the big VOD aggregators and distributors.
Okay.
So when I say aggregator, what I mean is that there's all these different platforms, right? iTunes, Vudu, Amazon. Those are the three big kind of purchase and buy platforms, or transactional. And then there's of course streaming. There's Netflix, Hulu, and then Tubi, and there's so many now. There's so many, but everyone knows the big ones, And Gravitas got us in. So what you do is you send it to one company aggregator, and they actually get it on these their relationship with the platforms get it on the platform. So they got us on iTunes, they got us on Vudu, they got us on Amazon. They got us on Hulu for a while. Hulu back then, Hulu was doing things where they picked things up for a year. So we were on Hulu for a year, and that was really great for us. From a financial perspective, Hulu was awesome. And then did not get us into Netflix, but Netflix is really hard to get into. It's just really hard. They can choose from everything that literally take anything they want, and people will sign it because they offer such a good deal and such widespread exposure. that it's just hard to, it's just hard to get in there. And it was a long shot for us anyway. And it was harder then. It's actually getting a little easier because they're moving back to, because Disney's pulling all of their things. They're kind of moving back to independent filmmakers a little bit more right now.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Yeah. So that may be good for Haven's End. I don't know. I'm not counting on that at all, but it's definitely more likely than Morningside probably. So.
Gotcha. So with so what was your first experience like at a festival screening your feature? Like that's got to be something mind blowing.
It is. There's let me think. I'm trying to think where the first one was. We did one there's one up in Virginia, up in DC actually. And the interesting thing about the festivals is a lot of times it's either packed or it's not that packed, right? and it depends. It depends a lot on how the festivals run. So one of the things, there's two kinds of festivals. There's festivals where they actually have it in the theater, and the festival's the focus, and they promote it as, hey, this is a big festival, come join us. Survivor Type premiered here in Atlanta at Buried Alive, and that was really awesome. That was such a great crowd. It was a very friendly crowd, and supportive, and they really loved it. Morningside, our premiere actually wasn't at a festival. We actually did a local premiere that we set up, which was also pretty awesome. It was like we actually we had cast come out. We had Nicholas come to the premiere, and it was a lot of fun, and a really like kind of like a wild evening. We had so much stuff. But as far as festivals, like we did one in DC that was pretty awesome, and it was a con, right? And when you do a con, they usually like partition like hotels, sort of like conference rooms to run the screenings in, which I don't like because it's a really kind of not a great screening environment. Yeah. But people come in and sometimes it's only like 5 or 10 people, But I had such a great time with that one because there was a moment in the movie that I had specifically included because I was like, it wasn't in the script, and we were halfway through shooting the movie, and I'm like, you know what, we just really need this moment, and it's the moment where, without spoiling anything, he throws his weapon. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I think so. It's been a little while since I've seen it, but
fair enough. Well, he throws his weapon at a person. And right. And he hadn't done that the whole movie. And I'm like, he's got this great weapon, right? That Luke Godfrey, who's now works on just big shows. He does set deck and prop design and special effects makeup and art direction for like big stuff. He just did Hellfest that came out.
Oh wow!
Not too long ago. Yeah. But he made this weapon for us, and it's such a beautiful, like it's a beautiful piece. We have 2 of them, and Stacy kept one, and I kept one, and I'm like, we've got this amazing weapon. He needs to throw it. He needs to like launch it at somebody. So we did that, and I'm in this festival in screening in with like 10 people, and I'm in the back of the room watching, and the guy who is the AV tech, right, who is actually running the projector, is sitting there watching from the side, and he throws the thing, and the guy like jumps up and starts like just waving his arm, and I'm like, yes, that is the reaction I was looking for.
Nice.
That's really it. Like again, it comes back to that like sort of that drug of audience reaction, right? You just when you design a moment or a film entirely, but when you design things to have a certain effect and you see that effect happening, there's nothing better. There's nothing better.
That's fantastic. Yeah, it's validating. It's
right.
It's showing you that that you are on the right path to doing what you want to do, and that's exactly. It really doesn't get that sort of feeling. It doesn't get any better than that. So it's making the rounds with all the different festivals you're having. Right. Varying experiences. Some reviews are coming in. I think it was Bleeding Cool who did a really. Was it Bleeding Cool who did that really good, solid review for it for the movie?
We had a bunch. I don't remember specifically Bleeding Cools, but we had a bunch, and it was the way I like to look at it is movies, very rarely are you going to get like across the board, oh, this is great, right? So yeah. Morningside hits a specific audience, and it hits that audience really well. So we had the reviews that like it hit, and they got what we were trying to do. they were just fantastic. Ain't It Cool had a really good review.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, Mark Miller had reviewed Survivor Type, and he has been very kind to my work. I guess back when he was working at Ain't It Cool, he was Ambush Bug, but he just wrote some really, really nice things, and kind of understood what we were trying to do, and that's what, and then you get people like, this is terrible. And it is what it is. There's a moment in the movie where we kind of explain one of the red herrings.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really it's really fast. If I were going to go back and change anything, I'd actually change how we do that to be a little bit more clear, I guess. But what we ended up seeing is a couple of times in reviews, like reviewers, either they were, they just missed that moment. They didn't catch what had happened. Mm-hmm. And wrote articles saying, hey, this doesn't make any sense. And so I had to write a couple of reviewers and like personal emails and to say, hey, this is what happened and this is where it happened in the movie. And 201, they retracted it and apologized.
Oh, good.
In the reviews. Yeah. So, but that's a good learning experience for me, because you still have to make it, you have to make it clear, particularly in a world where when people are watching movies, they also might be watching their tablet and, their phone.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like it's definitely one of those things where you have to be as clear as you can be. And I don't say I was unclear, but it flew by pretty quickly. So, I would have handled that differently, but I'm also at this point I'm not a big fan of let's go back and fiddle more and more and more. Like I fiddle a lot right up until I'm done. And then I think you have to be done. Cause otherwise you'll just go forever. Right.
Right.
It's definitely a risk. And so Haven's End, even now there's one shot I'm going to change before the video release. But other than that, I'm not touching it.
Excellent. So, so speaking of which, so so when was the concept of Haven's End in the when was that birthed during this whole, was it during the making of Morningside Monster?
No. So what happened was Morningside came out and Stacey and I were working on a script that's called American Pastime. And we actually got so far as to shoot the opening. Mm-hmm. But it's just a more expensive script. It's actually, I love the concept. It's basically like Hostel meets The Running Man.
Oh, nice.
So it's basically this concept of like in Hostel, wealthy people pay to cut people up, right? It's a social sort of commentary on wealth inequality. And in this one, wealthy people pay to pull people, literally kidnap people off the streets and put them in arenas and force them to fight. And they gamble, they bet on the outcomes. And, so it's a really great script. And it's just, Stacey wrote these kind of ridiculously awesome arenas, that they fight in. And of course, it's really expensive.
Oh yeah.
So we shot the opening low budget and it was nice. It came out nice, but even then we didn't have enough time to get it right. So it's a little, it's not where I'd love it to be,
Mm-hmm.
And then we went looking for money and just hadn't had a lot of success with that and with finding the money for that. And there's probably that script may come back around. We'll see. I definitely like it and think it should get made. But in the interim, I was actually a different project Kat had been working on. Just didn't have the kind of forward momentum that she was hoping for. So she reached out to me and they had a script and it was not what I would have. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So she said, do you have any interest in working on this? And I'm like, well, let's see if Harper wants to do it. Cause I wanted to do, cause Harper's a great writer and I hadn't made anything of his, So we talked to him and he pitched, literally gave him 24 hours to come up with a pitch, which he did. And he nailed it. So he came up with a pitch. We loved it. He went off and wrote it. And and it was micro budget, so I was able to raise the money fairly quickly for this one. And and we planned that in May of 2016 and shot it in December. It was really fast. In fact, what's really interesting is it only went through 3 drafts. And there's benefits to that, and then there's also some negatives, to like Morningside went through 13, Havens End went through 3, and I think that there's got to be a middle there somewhere where it's
some sort of a happy medium. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And then we had to make some changes on the fly, because you always do, like particularly with indie film, you just there's not a building that has this thing that we need, so how do we change that? That type of thing. And we made changes on the fly. It all worked out. Like it was fast and definitely chaotic, but as shooting a movie in 10 days is just kind of nuts. But but we did have a really amazing crew, and several people who've worked with me on all 3 movies. A lot of people that worked with me on both the features. When I say all 3, I mean including Survivor Type, and then every time around we had some new people, right? If they are awesome, as pretty much everyone on the set was, then hopefully they'll be available for the next one. But the thing too is that when you're working on indie stuff, what you're also hoping for is that the people that you're working with, you hope that they move on to bigger things. You hope that they that their careers are moving forward as well, and particularly in Atlanta right now, there's so much production here that the opportunities are there's just so many of them. And one of my favorite things to do is to write letters of recommendation, because that if that helps somebody get a job, that's one of the things that I can very easily do to pay back something that's not really, that I wish I could pay more for, that's a very easy thing for me to do, is to help out somebody else get a job if I know that they're going to rock it,
That's terrific. That you're able to do that. That you're taking that sort of initiative. That's fantastic. So the filming of Havens End, that's you said 10 days, right? So that's Now everyone was really kind of dialed in to that. Everyone was really looking forward to plowing through it the way that you did, or was everyone just kind of like a little leery of that? What was the sort of vibe?
Well, I mean, that's a great question. I think that the people I worked with before trusted me. They knew it was going to be tight, but it's not the first indie to be filmed in 10 days. It's not going to be the last. And so, it was really just a matter of, hey, we have to move. We have to move quick. We have to get what we need. You have to trust me that I'm getting what we need, and we, I like to keep my sets light. I like to keep them fun. I definitely don't, I definitely like if there's yelling on one of my sets, I made that mistake very early on. I yelled at somebody, really early on in my career, and it was terrible. Like, it was just like, I felt awful afterwards, and realized that that's not the environment you want to have. Right. It's just not. It doesn't serve anybody good. So I generally try and let that not happen. I mean, sometimes there's sometimes you have to yell, hurry up, let's, this type of thing, particularly if rain is coming, which happens. In Havens End, Georgia had been in a drought. It hadn't rained for 136 days or something like that.
Oh no.
And then literally the day after we started shooting, it rained nonstop. It rained. So there's a section in the movie. We got lucky. The movie takes place over about 4 or 5 days, and there's one day where it's raining the entire time, and we just happened to be able to sort of even though we didn't shoot that whole day in one day, we happened to be able to shoot the segments. When the rain would show up, we were shooting segments for that one day.
Oh, so, good.
Yeah, so we got it kind of. We were able to kind of contain the rain to one day in the chronological film.
And you didn't need a rain machine to make that happen too.
So did not need a rain. Yeah, no, and I will say it definitely adds some production value in that regard, right?
Yeah.
So no, it was good stuff. It's good stuff. But it was a little frustrating to be like, really, we had a drought, and then all of a sudden. So anyway.
I can't wait to see this one. So I think it sounds terrific. It sounds like a blast. And from what you're saying, it sounds like everyone involved was really gung ho for making this the best it possibly can be, which is always a great thing.
Yeah.
So now that one is going around. Like you said before, it's starting to get some offers. What's that? What was it like, kind of getting that sort of validation where people are actually like willing to invest in your project? Are they basically just going to be like, now will the right offer basically be the one to basically just kind of pay back the budget and put the extra cost on top of that?
The realities of micro budget films is that doesn't really happen anymore. Like, it's very, very difficult to get money up front to pay back a film because there's, for two reasons. One, it's very difficult to know how a film's going to do on this level. Like, there's a little bit of, when you're at a slightly higher budget, and particularly when you have name actors, there's a little bit of a calculus that goes into that, where you can say, well, if you've got this person, we know is probably, based on their past movies, it's probably going to make X amount of money. They can do some math there and actually give you what's called a minimum guarantee. For this level, that's pretty much gone. It's pretty much MGs don't exist anymore, and so you make deals based on profit sharing. Like, hey, we're going to put this out and we're going to market it some, although usually that's still on the filmmaker a lot of times. And we'll split it with you. And so the split levels are different based on the different companies' offer and their reach. And sometimes a company that maybe is a little bit better known will not have quite as big a split for the filmmaker, but you can take the risk that they're going to get it seen more, because they're a bigger company. So things like that. That's the kind of stuff I'm looking at right now. And we have a handful of offers on the table right now, and I'm just kind of weighing them and waiting for the festival run to be getting closer to being over, and then we'll make a decision. And usually from when you make a decision nowadays with the VOD side, you make a decision and it's 3 to 4 months and it's out.
Wow.
So sometimes it's more. It depends on the company too. Like how many movies they have on their schedule. When does it go? And then physical media is a totally different game now. And honestly, it just depends on whether. Usually, if it comes out on DVD, depends mostly on either you can do it yourself and not let the production company do it if you want to self-sell your DVDs, or if one of the stores like Family Video or Walmart or Best Buy pick it up, then they'll print copies, in that scenario to get them into the stores. But there's a lot of, it's not a dead market. Like a lot of people saying it's dead, and it's not. There's still several $1 billion a year sold in physical media, but it's definitely a more niche market now, and you have to treat it like a niche market, and that includes decisions on what to print and when to print and things of that nature.
Gotcha. So the days of, say, like the Salkinds working with Warner Brothers for that negative pickup deal on the first Superman movie, those days are pretty much gone.
I mean, it still happens on the Hollywood level some, but it's much, much more rare. It doesn't happen at all on indies, or very. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's possible that it happens on any level, but certainly not on the micro budget level. That's the only time I've seen that happen recently is there's a Grindhouse film called the Amazon Box, or Amazon Hot Box, that a friend of mine directed, and they pre-sold it internationally.
Really?
They pre-sold it internationally with some relationships that they had, with some international companies from some previous movies, and then went and shot it in secret. And we were very, very close-mouthed about it. People I knew, like including myself, knew something was happening but didn't know what it was. And then they launched a Kickstarter with the movie completely finished. And
wow.
And it had a very successful Kickstarter because they're like, hey, here it is. We're gonna, you'll literally be in your mailbox in a month instead of, hey, give us money to make this. They said,
right.
They said, give us money to send you a disc. Which is a lot different. And they had a very successful Kickstarter, and again had already made the movie, had already shot it. So
that's fantastic.
Yeah. So, but yeah, and that's a really good example of indie filmmakers finding creative ways to get their movies made. You know.
Yeah. So speaking of that, with that sort of creative way that an indie filmmaker was able to get their projects out there into the world, what advice do you have? What's one big piece of advice you can give to an up and coming filmmaker that's wanting to? They're basically kind of like in that same boat that you were back in the day when you were putting together your own projects and not really sure what it was that you were going to do with them, but they have that passion, they have that drive, and they want to get it out there. So what do you have to say to those lucky people?
Figure out your goals. Figure out what your goals are, and know your audience. Those are the two things. I think know your audience is. There's kind of two sort of approaches you can take to film, which is make something that you yourself would want to see, which I think you should, by the way. But that's almost a different way to say know your audience anyway, right? Is if you or your audience know what you want to see and know that there's other people that want to see the same thing, and just respect the fact that you're making a film for an audience. You're not necessarily making it for yourself. I mean, maybe you are, but if your goal is to get it seen by a lot of people, then you got to make sure that you're making something people want to see. That's and maybe that's not your goal, and then that's fine. Just know what you're trying to do, and react appropriately. Make decisions based on what your ultimate goal is.
Right.
And if your goal is to have something you can say, I made this and it's exactly what I wanted to make, and I don't care. Fine, that's great. Just have your expectations tempered, as far as what the reaction might be from other people.
Gotcha. So, where can our listeners find you? Because I'm sure that they're going to want to check out Attack of the Morningside Monster. I'm definitely sure that they are going to really want to check out Haven's End when the time comes for that to come out. But in the meantime, where can they find you in terms of like social media and the internet and as a whole? Right.
So Haven's End movie on I think it's on all three. I think it's on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook is a really good place to go. Morningside is available. It's free to watch on Amazon Prime streaming if you have Amazon Prime. If not, you can rent it from or buy it from iTunes, Vudu, Amazon as well. The DVD is available from Amazon. It is on Blu-ray through a company called Horror Pack, which I actually co-own, which is a DVD and Blu-ray horror subscription service. And
no kidding, you're a co-owner there?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
My partner Diego and I built that company as a
wow.
side thing. Yeah. Well, and honestly, it came out of Morningside not doing very well on physical media and me getting pissed off about it. Yeah. So we built this wonderful small business that we've kind of turned. We've kind of built a fan base, and we are able to use it as a platform to get indie filmmakers on Blu-ray where they can't otherwise do so. And we've released 30. I think this month is February is our 32nd limited edition. Every month we send 4 discs, and one of them is a limited edition where we either work with another distributor or we go and acquire the rights ourselves from an indie filmmaker and write them a check. And,
oh wow! And
then we put together the Blu-ray and send it out. So we have we have the numbered spine and everything, right? You can go all the way through 1 through 32 with the spines, and it's a fun side thing that kind of keeps me heavily involved in the community, which is where I want to be, and right. And also keeps me actively focused on what's going on in the distribution world of the micro budget level. It's and then we sponsor film festivals, and we just try and give back a little bit. And we're getting ready to get into production a little bit with a short film. We're helping out a filmmaker named Aaron Day, who wrote and is acting in this film called Dusso, D-U-S-S-O, which is on Seed and Spark right now. You can actually go there and give and donate to that production. It's going to be directed by Jenna Kennel, who is an actress, director, stunt woman extraordinaire. She does it all. And she was the lead in the big indie hit called Terrifier from last year, which is a killer clown movie.
Oh, wow.
and it's on Netflix. But she's directing this one, so we're going to help them out a little bit, promoting the do so, and then hopefully we'll do something with it in the future through our label.
And what's the URL for that? You said Horror Package, right?
Horror Pack, HORRORPACK.com.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. And now my final question, since we are, by the time this comes out, this will be out on Tuesday, and it'll be out the Tuesday before the Oscars. So you still have time to say this. What's one prediction you have for next Sunday's Oscars?
Oh wow, Oscar prediction.
Just one.
It's going to have very low ratings. That's my based on everything that's happened this year. I think it's turned off a lot of people. They've made some really questionable choices and had to walk them back a bunch. Most recently with the cinematography and editing and the Oscars that they were going to run during the commercials and then the show later.
I don't understand that at all. I do not understand that way of thinking.
I think it's. I mean, honestly, I think that when you start getting into the world of Hollywood, right, it's all about. There's just a different perspective on what brings value to films, and it's mostly people, right, and it's mostly actors and the sort of celebrity component, and you have some people that decided that was more valuable and didn't understand that the people who make the movies don't see it that way. Yeah. Right. And they got a lot of pushback because their viewpoint was isolated to one thing that's not actually necessarily true in the grander scheme of things. So as far as like who's going to win what, that's a really good question. My gut is A Star Is Born is going to win Best Picture. I could be wrong. Roma's got a decent shot too, of course. But if you look at things like Argo, and Hollywood really likes to like the Oscars. They really like to award films that speak to the world of Hollywood, right? Mm-hmm. Like they really like self-referential stuff. And Stars Born being the fourth iteration of that kind of classic story that's all about that celebrity process. Like I got a gut feeling that it gets chosen in the end. I could be wrong.
Nice. Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out exactly where I'm going to go with my own Oscar predictions, but this definitely helps. So, folks, I can't iterate enough just how much you will get rewarded if you hold on to the passions that drive you. You will, because if you don't give up on them, guess what? They're not going to give up on you. And they're going to find a way to manifest themselves in some way, shape, or form that very likely you would not have expected. That happened with Chris. That's happening with myself in its own fun way. And it's happening with so many other people out there. And I really, really hope it happens for all of you. So for Chris Ethridge, this is George Sirois saying to all of you, thank you so much for listening and ever upward. I'll see you next week.